Hello and welcome to another special episode of the Offside Musings Podcast. My name is Okey in the band. I'm delighted to welcome you on behalf of my co-host, Emeka Onyagwa. First of all, an apology and an explanation. This podcast was unable to hold in the last week and a half because my co-host and I happened to have other commitments that made it impossible for us to have a recording. But we're really delighted to join you today. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the ongoing feud between the presidential candidate of the APC, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and the publisher of this day newspaper, who is also the proprietor of Arise Television, Nduka Obebona. The feud arose from this day's criticism, deserved criticism, of Bola Ahmed Tinubu for removing himself from what was conceived to be a series of debates between the major presidential candidates in Nigeria. So today we're going to look at all of that, and we're going to look at the state of Tinubu's campaign, and we're going to revisit our prescription in our last episode that indeed Tinubu should consider the prospect of stepping aside from the presidential race. We welcome you.
All right.
Let's just go with this.
Great stuff. Great stuff. Great stuff. Oh, man, I thought we were done with Tinubu last week, man, but apparently not.
That is actually, when my column...
Or rather 2 weeks ago, but...
Yeah, when the episode on Tinubu came out, how do I put it now? I was quite disappointed. Very, very disappointed in a certain response to it. Okay? So, of course, the prescription that Tinubu should leave the presidential race was well received in some quarters, especially amongst reasonable Nigerians. The argument that we made was one, that Tinubu is visibly mentally and physically depleted. Okay? When a man shows up at a debate, at a political rally, and starts mentioning the name of a different political party, mistaking it for his own political party. When a man frequently now makes sentences that are absolutely unintelligible, okay, that suggests that there is a miswiring, if you like, in the person's reasoning, cognitive ability, okay? And it is not a crime for somebody to be in poor health. All of us, if we're fortunate to live long enough, we're going to be in poor health at some point in our lives before we pass on. So nobody makes fun of a man who is not in the best of shapes physically or mentally. But I tell you something. The argument here is that Nigeria, whatever physical or mental malaise that afflicts Bola Tinubu, Nigeria as a nation is actually in worse shape. Nigeria needs a leader who, at the very least, is able to stay awake and spend the time and put in the mental energy into thinking of solutions to the country's problems. When you have a candidate who is visibly unwell, who therefore is likely to spend the next 4 years, if he happens to be elected, running to one foreign country or another, seeking medical help, then it is a disservice to Nigeria. And Nigerians have seen this kind of poor service to their nation happened under the military dictator Sani Abacha, who was in very bad shape when he took over leadership in the country. We've seen it under Umaru Yar'Adua, who again spent lots of time in hospitals in Germany, in Saudi Arabia, and so on. Then we have seen it in Muhammadu Buhari, the incumbent president. Nigeria should not be a space that is passed on like a joke from one sick man to another, okay? Because Nigeria, as I said, has profound and worsening problems that at the very least would demand full attention. Now, let me tell you what disappointed me. So a lot of our listeners understood that argument.
Mm-hmm.
Those who did not buy it, I would respect if they could demonstrate that Tinubu's inability to speak intelligibly, Tinubu's inability to face the rigors of the campaign, Tinubu's inability to do a simple debate with other political presidential candidates. I'd understand it if they would offer some kind of rational defense of that. What they did instead was, of course, to use the favorite Nigerian thing of saying, no, this is ethnic prejudice or something. It's a silly argument, and those who know me know that argument is silly. Okay? I have been, I'm Igbo, for those of you who don't know, but I have been in the past as now critical of Peter Obi, who is one of the presidential candidates. I happen to know people who are close to Atiku Abubakar. I have been in the past and now very critical of Atiku Abubakar. I happen to know friends, so Bayo Onanuga, for example, and Dela Alake, who are both spokespeople for Tinubu's campaign, are very close friends of mine. They were colleagues of mine. We all worked together in the Concord newspaper. But this is beyond friendship. This is beyond ethnic affiliations and so on, or religious affiliations. For me, the ultimate debate is the country Nigeria. Okay? What's the best thing for Nigeria? And so that's why in our episode, I said that there is indeed a chance. There is a good opportunity, there is a good chance that Tinubu, if he stays in the race, might actually get elected. So I'm not denying that. But I'm saying that especially if Tinubu is going to be elected, that Tinubu owes it to himself and owes it to Nigerians to remove himself, because he's not going to have the time or the energy to devote to the leadership of Nigeria. So those are my opening thoughts.
Yeah. Man. Which one is it? Gubu gubu dubu.
So many.
Gubu dubu dubu dubu. For those who don't know, sometimes you ask the man questions. It's not a question of, he seems to be he seems to be communicating in a language that the majority of us have not come across, aside from maybe in movies of aliens. But the
thing is, right? There are some people who sort of have that kind of idiosyncrasy, who will make up words, right? So it's not like this man has turned into a KO Mbadiwe, who will speak about a political agafe. He will turn an Igbo word into a political phrase, right? No, Tinubu was never known for speaking unintelligibly, just speaking words that have absolutely no meaning. And he uses those words in contexts where they're actually uncalled for. So clearly, what is at play is some miswiring,
or maybe he just he's trying out a new career as a mime. as a conscious.
Now be serious. Be serious. Be serious. Yeah.
Because you get to the Chatham House thing, and you clearly, if you watch the videos, right, it's not even for those who have all these very interesting takes where people are like, well, the allegation is good. So essentially, gets to Chatham House. They ask him a direct question about what he intends to do in terms of healthcare. Can't remember the other two questions. And he says, he's going to delegate the questions.
Yeah.
Security, he has a dream team and he's going to do. And people are like, yeah, Tinubu works in a team. I've heard so much of those, it might be rational. The only problem is that your main job as a leader, really, the one thing that you're supposed to do as a leader in that kind of situation, assuming, even if you're whichever of the two systems Nigeria wants to copy, whether it's the British or the American, the main job as a leader is to stand up and speak. Be a leader, right? Absolutely. Even if if you can't do that, that's the main requirement. Reagan gets shot. He does that all through. Even at the end of the day, when Margaret Thatcher eventually, later in the day, we find out that it was early signs of Alzheimer's. She stands up there and gives her speeches, right? That's your main job. You have to, even if you've lost your voice, you have to use sign language or something, right? So if you can't do that, it's interesting though. But the key thing is this, right? If you watch the videos of the Chatham House, this thing, minus the BBC interview, you will see at every junction where they're asking questions, he has to look around. They're sleeping with people. They'll give him then he starts, talking about something, it's very...
That is absolutely unrelated to the question that he was at. It was actually, so I'll tell you something, because what he went to do at Chatham House was, for me, let me see, it was wounding of one's pride as a Nigerian, okay? Because I bet you that in the history of appearances at that venue, that no former speaker has done what Tinubu did, and it is not a kind of distinction that you want to be proud of. Okay, that simple questions, sort of what you might call softball questions, seemed absolutely to defeat Tinubu. So he arbitrarily named, I came with the speaker, a deputy speaker. He's going to say this one. The governor of Kaduna State is going to answer this one. The woman leader. It's not like a head of state who goes with his ministers who are in charge of different portfolios, right? And then the president is asked a question, and he speaks in generalities. Okay, which is what some presidents might do. A president might speak in generalities and then say, I'm going to invite this minister to give the particular details, okay, of this answer that the president has already attempted. But Tinubu was clearly, you could see that this thing was rigged from the very moment that he went in there and they told him, hey, when they ask you questions, just tell them that, you have an excellent team. So if your questions are to be answered for you by El Rufai, the governor of Kaduna State, or by Bajamia Miller, right?
Bajamia Miller.
Yes. So why don't you then, which is again an argument that I've made with some friends, Tinubu clearly has money, has a lot of money. The question of how he made that money is, let's put it aside for the moment. But why is it that it never occurs to the Tinubus of Nigeria to say, I have money, but I'm diminished both intellectually and physically. Let me put my money and my political capital behind a Bajamia Miller. Okay, let me sponsor him to run for president because I believe he's articulate. I believe that, he can serve the nation, the country better, right? Why does it have to be you running out of a sense of ego? And then they ask you a question and you can't even answer. So if you consider the challenges of running a nation, okay, the challenges of running a nation, they are so vast and deep and profound. Okay? Holding a press conference is like the eating of suya of the presidency. It should be something that you do with flair.
It should be an easy, simple thing.
Precisely. If Tinubu cannot get through that moment, oh my gosh, then we are in deep.
But you do know that there are a lot of people who also say, "Hey, look, man, Buhari was similar when he ran 8 years ago, right? He was ill. People were talking about Buhari dying and all that, and likening it to Yaradua when that famous phone call where Obasanjo was calling, "No, Moru, are you there?"
Are you there?
But now they are looking at Buhari, which visibly he looks either is a different person, or in some way, shape, or form is a different person anyway. Physically different, or he got treatment and became, So some people are like, once Tinubu gets into office, that the office will rejuvenate him and
even for it's true, right?
Mm-hmm.
It used to be that, especially in his first term in office, that Buhari spent an inordinate amount of time abroad. He's traveled abroad for treatments, but he's not done as much as he did in his first time. So Buhari, in a very bizarre twist, seems to have become more physically fit. And yet, when you ask Buhari when journalists, first of all, he doesn't have much interaction with journalists, but the few occasions when he does, when Buhari is asked questions, you see that the man is no longer there. Okay? Sometimes you ask him a question and he answers something that is absolutely unrelated to the question that's being asked. Okay?
That was very similar to Buhari running, though. If you go back to even the Chatham House thing, he was also very, you'd ask him exactly what he asked him a question, he answers some other question, gives you some other answers. So.
But at least he did that. He did not say, there are people who will speak for me. This whole somebody else is going to answer the question for me is a new law. It's a new development and it's a law. And it's a new law in not only in the history of Nigeria, I think in the history of politics around the world. Can you imagine? And let's not use the American president. Everybody agrees that, say, Joe Biden is somewhat has cognitive lapses, perhaps is mentally diminished, right? But Biden still holds press conferences, okay, and speaks to the issues still, right? He may not take as many questions as other presidents or as he used to do in his hair day as a senator, but at least you don't find Biden getting a question and saying, okay, there are three persons who are going to answer the questions for me. It's really, it's so in a sense, what Tinubu went to do was to turn himself into a charlatan at Chatham House. Okay? It's like the charlatan of a presidential candidate. It's like a parody. Okay? He really brought shame to Nigeria and did himself profound discredit, I think.
To some degree, I see the way you see it. But I agree, man.
I know you also find it a bit funny, but I'm too ashamed to find it funny at all.
But, to be honest, I don't agree, right? After watching what happened at Chatham House. So for those who don't know, Chatham House is in the mode of maybe Brookings
Institute.
A serious think tank platform where
if Nigeria were more serious, it would be like the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs.
Maybe
major,
something like that, or something
major,
private, because Chatham House and this thing are technically private, right? So
right.
maybe there'll be other things private. It's not a got you place. They're not trying to. They are going to ask you tough questions. They're not going to give you got you. So you get there, you kind of know where the conversation is going to land, and it's like a runway, man. It's a free runway for you to just go there. You already know where it's landing. You can espouse all kinds of idealistic stuff. Anything you want to say. They're not going to, they're not going to
ask you tough questions, and point out your contradictions. No,
they might give you one or two follow-up questions from, but they are not. It's not a got you place. They are serious on policy. They're serious on this thing. It's a serious stage. It's almost like I'm trying to remember where Obama gave. Anyway, there are a lot of people that give this kind of speeches. It's not just like it's the point is you know what you're expecting already, right? And you get there, what we saw, and the reactions we've seen since then, just it made me sit down and reread your your column last week. I read it, took a look. And then I sat down. I was like, I took a look at the whole thing, and at this point, I feel like at this point, I'm like, because last week I'm like, yeah, man, if elections are free and fair, 75%, Peter Obi is going to win, blah blah blah. This week I'm like, you know what? Maybe I think I've evolved to the point where I think Tinubu is the best candidate for Nigeria, pretty much. I'm really evolved to that point. I'm sitting there, I'm like, you know what? I think I miss. I think Tinubu does very boisterous guy. Just he's very emblematic of where Nigeria is right now. That's the question he's looking for, as we call it in Nigeria. He needs expo. You say, okay, what is this? Like, this one. So it seems very, and it's the response of the people around him. The people around him, and the people who have been saying this thing. I've encountered. If you go back multiple episodes, I've been saying this thing. I've encountered so many people on social media platforms, you name it, any one of them, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Clubhouse, people from last year who the vigorousness they used to support Tinubu, and a lot of these guys tend to be British, or maybe not British, but living in the UK. So because that this thing appeals to Nigerians, so the vigorousness, the what's the word? The bubbling, the fervency. They sit down and I'm like, are these guys okay? And I've sat down and I realized a lot of these people, I've said it time again, a lot of these people have been paid. There's nothing you tell me to the contrary.
Okay. I don't think that people have been paid. I mean, it's possible that there are people who comment online who have been recruited, right? So I do know that a lot of politicians do that sort of thing, right? In the days, for example, when I was taking on Andioba in Anambra State, I know that there were people who were paid full time to just go and curse me out every time I wrote up about a critical column on Andioba, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's not so much that people are paid as the fact that they, and I find it difficult to call certain people educated. So I would just say people who have certificates, okay, some of them have traveled abroad. They have earned certificates in universities and polytechnics and so on.
Yep.
It is, on some level, difficult to fathom why some Nigerians, okay, are unable to rise beyond considerations of this person is from our ethnicity, okay. Because what I see, for example, Peter Obi, I have said openly, Peter Obi has major weaknesses, and I've written about them in the past when he was governor. I've written about them now that is a candidate. But Peter Obi excites. I would those that I call enlightened in Nigeria, excites them because they see, for all his flaws, that here is a man who is trying to wrestle with the problems in Nigeria and to proffer solutions. And so there's a certain activeness of the mind, which you see in him and you see also in his running mate. Atiku is not as intellectually exciting and impressive as his running mate, Ifeanyi Okowa. Tinubu and Kashim Shettima, his running mate, have made, it's almost as if they have made their intellectual deficiency sexy for some people, because, here is a running mate who excels in insulting people, so he will say that Osibanjo, the VP, should go and be an ice cream seller or something, right? And when you see him, or he just in a statement that was, revealed something profoundly unflattering about him. He described himself and Tinubu as a dream team, so sort of this harking back to the dream team basketball team when Michael Jordan and Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and so on and Charles Barkley went to the Olympic Games and they were the dream team, right? So you call yourself the dream team, and there is nothing sparkling about you when you speak, right? It's all very pedestrian. So this is what disappoints me, that on social media you find people who tend to defend Tinubu, and you see that their defense is ultimately because I'm a Yoruba man and, he's a Yoruba man, so I have to defend him. Or I'm a Muslim and so I believe in this, he's a Muslim candidate, so I have to defend him. And, and I say, I expect Nigerians to be beyond that, especially in this very moment when the country has really crashed. Okay? Because in the end, if you hire a Yoruba man as president who is incompetent, and I've said it before, some Igbo people have been saying, it's the turn of the Igbo. I've always said, I don't believe in the turn of the Igbo. If you want to vote for an Igbo candidate, let it be because he's the best candidate. if an Hausa or Hausa Fulani man has been president for 20 years, and an Igbo candidate comes out who is mediocre, and there's another Fulani candidate who is excellent, please vote for him. And that's what the kind of choice that I'll make. That's a rational choice to make. My criticism of Tinubu is that Tinubu is clearly debilitated physically and mentally. And he should not be part of any conversation, the president of any country. Shouldn't even be part of a conversation to run his own company on a day-to-day basis. Okay, but of course that's his business. So if he wants to run his business aground, but it is not up to Tinubu, who is sick, to run Nigeria aground, because Nigeria is already caught in the mire.
Yeah, look, there are a lot of people who support him, right? I'm not even talking about the ones who do it for out of largely, you could say, blind loyalty or blind allegiance. I won't even call it. You're not lying to anything. Just blind ideology. It's essentially like, I try to put it sometimes. It's like, I'm on Yoruba, has to be a Yoruba person, or essentially really is more like anti-Igbo of some degree, I guess. But neither here nor there. Some people do it for that. But it's not even those guys. It's the ones who you see them. You saw it in the summer in New York. They were not even Nigerians. They were not even Africans. They were just black people they paid to walk around New York and support Tinubu. They actually paid their videos of that. That's actual this thing. And you see a lot of these guys in the UK the UK ones I run into a lot. It's like, they make no sense. They're very vigorous. They would give long speeches. I've seen a lot of these people, and they make sure they use their best British accents as sharp as possible. Whichever part of the UK they're from, they throw it in there. They typically don't pick, typically pick people from London, maybe Manchester. They don't go about picking people too complicated, like say Liverpool or Welsh, where, or deep Scottish people, Scottish, they want this clear, crispy, and a lot of these people have ties to Nigeria. Either they were born there and grew up there, or they grew up, something. Mm-hmm. And the way they go about defending this thing is akin to, the people with titles, and it's like you said, people with degrees, which 100%. You can come here and, I think Nigerians are very good at going to school. So even when we come here, like I have a friend, a little bit of a tangent, I was talking with him the other day, and we always he always has a point of view which he doesn't seem to realize he can't defend. And when the thing typically breaks down. So then when he comes in and any chance he gets, he tries to tell me, yeah, man, he went to Wharton's. I'm always laughing, man. When he has to point that out to me, I was looking at him like, guy, the moment you point that, and it's not like me, I didn't, I'm still doing schooling and stuff.
Credentialism, yeah.
Exactly. It's not like, I'm like, the moment you have to point that out, it's like to me, at that point in time, it's definitely the same thing as you walking up to my kids and being like, I'm your dad.
I'm much older than you. Yeah.
The moment I have to look at my kids and be like, I'm your dad. That means I've started losing. It's these guys that are there. They are, you saw it in Chatham House. I don't know if you saw where these guys came out. Even the hall was filled with his people. Outside, these people were protesting. The people protesting Tinubu, and they were fully ready, and that kind of like just makes me. And you have all these kind of people. They're all in this ecosystem. They're all with the Tinubu thing, and to be honest, when I saw the man saying he's the front runner, I was trying to shout down. That's what that added to my own, thinking of the whole thing. I'm like, you know what? This guy is actually right, man. He is front runner.
In a lot of ways, that's the kind of person we've chosen, which is why Nigeria is in the shape it is today. All right. So you have a country, again, the paradox of Nigeria, a country that has amazing surgeons and doctors and engineers and academics, writers all over the world. making great names for themselves, right? Nigerian surgeons have done some of the most complicated surgeons, including a Nigerian doctor who was able to do a neonatal, surgery on a child in the womb, did a spinal surgery and so on. And so you have that kind of expertise and that kind of brilliance. And then you look in the political arena, you look at music, right? So you go to any party now, anywhere in the world, you go to a Hollywood party in LA, okay? You're going to hear some Nigerian, not just some, you're going to hear a lot of Nigerian musicians. Their music's being played, right? You go to anywhere where good books are read, you're going to see Nigerian authors, that their books are part of the conversation, right? You look at universities in Europe, in Asia, in America, and invariably in every university you look, you'll find a Nigerian who is at the very top in his or her field. But when we come to politics, it's as if we select the least attractive of our number to run our affairs. And the way that somebody explained it to me years ago is like, he says that we take in Nigeria somebody whose qualifications will make them qualify for the job of a megad, but they are living in they own the palace, and then the people who are enlightened, educated, and so on are the megads. So it's a world that is where, as another friend of mine said, absurdity has been normalized, as Ngugi wa Thiong'o would say. When we normalize absurdity, then you see the kind of public space that we own in Nigeria, where 60 plus years after independence, you ask a Nigerian president, a Nigerian governor, what are your achievements? And without any sense of shame, any sense of irony, he would say, I have built some roads and I'm paying salaries. And Nigerians accept it. We accept it. We accept that if a governor, if a political leader has built some roads, however poor the quality, and is able to pay salaries, that their leadership has been borne out. But let's leave all of that aside and go to the immediate subject of today's podcast, which is this ongoing war between Tinubu's camp and the publisher of This Day newspaper, Ndoka Obaebwana.
Yeah.
So This Day and Arise Television came out with a very, I think, fiery, unsparing statement where they really took Tinubu to the cleaners for refusing to be part of this long-planned conversation among the major presidential candidates. So 2 of those events have been held. Tinubu, the first one said, he and his VP candidate were busy doing other town halls of their own, missing the point that even though every campaign is doing their individual events, you are ultimately, as it were, presenting yourself in competition with several other candidates for the job. It makes sense for Nigerians to see all of you on the stage taking questions, having a conversation about your competing visions for fixing the country. Okay? And Nigerians are not going to get that sense if you just go off and you go speak at a campaign, right? So, and then this second time around, Tinubu decided to go to Chatham House and do his charlatanry there. So he accused Nduka Obaebana of being corrupt, of accepting several hundred million naira from the former President Goodluck Jonathan's administration, which apparently Buhari's administration forced him to refund. And then Nduka Obaebana has issued his own statement saying that the money, part of the money was given to newspaper houses because of some business losses that the government of Jonathan had caused newspapers to sustain, and that the larger amount came from compensation for these days Abuja office, which was destroyed in a terrorist bomb attack. Well, I don't want to hold brief for Nduka Obaebana. It may well be that Nduka is corrupt. But the point is, Nduka has not presented himself to be president of Nigeria. Okay? If he does, then these questions will be pertinent. Okay? And at any rate, whether Nduka Obaebana is corrupt or not does not answer to the fact that Tinubu basically dodges these events where he has the opportunity to present himself, if he considers himself the front runner, to present himself before Nigerians in the company of the other presidential candidates, right? So it's as if he now thinks that Nduka Obaebana is his political presidential candidate that he has to demolish. No, it is Atiku, it is Peter Obi, it is the other presidential candidates that you really have to go and face. And in the end, I think that part of why Tinubu has chosen to mount a war with Nduka Obaebana is that it's an easy war to fight. Okay? You can lob missiles from a distance, accuse Nduka of certain things. Nduka would then do his counterattacks, and you're creating deliberately a distraction. And ultimately, what is now created is a situation where it will be impossible for him to ever appear in any of the town halls, because he's going to say that the Nduka Obaebana team is now against him. But I think that other groups should step in, that Tinubu's camp should be asked, which other television network, if maybe Channels Television should step up, do this event with the Center for Democracy in Nigeria. But Tinubu ought to make a commitment to appear on the same stage with the other presidential candidates. I don't know what you think.
Yeah, I mean, it's the classic straw man argument. So it's what politicians do, right? Mm-hmm. So another way of escape. I mean, the essence of this version of the straw man, or this iteration of it, is to escape the town halls, is what they're called. Mm-hmm. Town hall, the conversation alongside other candidates. It's not really a debate. The town hall, which actually is actually a lot easier, because you're not debating.
Yeah.
Nobody's coming at you. You're not allowed to go at people. So you're going to get questions from the crowd, which they try to rig it to some degree, but there's still serious questions out there, where we saw Peter Obi lose his temper at the last one. Mm-hmm. With Dino Malaya, with so it is. But you're not the first one. Yeah, you're not going to have it. Yeah, that was the first one. You're right. You're not going to have it back and forth with anybody. So a town hall is still pretty mundane, pretty easy.
Mm-hmm.
All you have to do is just
change. Yeah,
the same thing. All you have to do is sit down and just answer the question.
Show up, and it should be possible for him to show up. Which is, again, it speaks to the lowness of the bar. Okay, that this guy goes to Chatham House and couldn't answer simple questions. Had to be a distributor of questions. Okay, and then the possibility of joining this town hall events, which again, as you said, is not really adversarial in that sense. You can actually go there and just have the presence of mind and say, hey, I have the magic formula trust me, I have practiced, I have long experience, I've studied other political situations and so on, and I'm going to bring Nigeria. I know how to create wealth. I'm going to recreate Nigeria into a very sustaining and so on and so forth kind of country, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like you're going to go there and you have some moderator who is going to say to you, okay, you said this, let me show you where you lied. But in Tinubu's case, the drug deals in the US, which led to him forfeiting more than $1 million to the US government, okay, is disqualifying, in my view. Whether Nigeria is a place where people take such criminal records and ethical lapses seriously is a different question. But clearly, Tinubu has Tundein, who's done a lot of this archaeological work of finding these details of this criminal past.
Mm-hmm.
He'll really be a demoralizing leader were he to be elected. And were he to be elected, Nigeria is going to be in a very sorry state.
Yeah.
The image of the country will be terrible. Yeah.
I mean, I get what you're saying. Even in a town hall, you can even avoid those questions. You don't really need to. I think that's not the biggest fear. While we're just talking about it, I keep getting flashbacks of when my father was ill.
Mm-hmm.
My father, one of the illnesses he had was Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
He eventually passed at 71. And one of the parts of the Alzheimer's was, even when he was lucid, there's a lot of irrationality. In his own case, there's a lot of irrationality, a lot of things he wouldn't have done in his wisdom. I started seeing it earlier.
There are moments, yeah.
He for the up until where he completely started, losing it, and we had to follow him around more or less 24/7, not more or less 24/7, literally.
Mm-hmm.
But even before then, a couple of years before then, there were irrational acts that I knew my father would never have done. Again, my father gave birth to me when I was it was like 49. By the time I was born, 49, 50. So, there were things that he would do that and people, especially in Nigeria, man, when you fall ill, there's a whole series of books. But one of the things that would happen is you bury it, act like it does, it's like I give you multiple stories, Charlie, and then, families act very funny. I have uncles who are not well right now, and, even when maybe my mom goes to look to see them, how are you doing? They won't even let him come out, or, that kind of thing, hide it. So even long before then, it got to that point, my dad started exhibiting some level of irrationality. I'm not saying Tinubu has Alzheimer's. Far from it. I've got no idea. I've had personal experience, obviously, but that doesn't make me a diagnostic expert or something. Right. Yeah. But one thing I do know, and one thing we can all see objectively, is that he has some level of irrationality that has him running for president, his behavior, Emilokon, the way he spewed it out in front of everybody. You start seeing the consistency of these things. If you ever climbed on a town hall stage, even in this thing, even in the interview he did with the BBC and what he said, even in Chatham House, there was so much irrationality. There was so much vitriol on people. It was like, it's funny to me. I think some of the people who are around him and are urging him on, I think some of them know the full story of what's happening. Again, I don't necessarily know, but we can all see that this is even in his good days, right? Even if Tinubu was well, I still he's not the guy. But look, like I said, I think he's. I think if you think about what Nigeria is and what it's become, and what you're talking about earlier on this thing, where I would say Nigeria never had a reckoning of some sort of what it should be. It doesn't mean a reckoning is like boom, you come out in you got a reckoning. Sometimes reckonings come in a lot of countries, multiple iterations over decades or even centuries sometimes, but it's never had a reckoning. And the closest it came to having a reckoning was after independence, which, even before the Civil War, they had wiped out the intelligentsia. They go in there, wipe them out. Everything becomes ethnic. When the intelligentsia was perceived to be Igbo dominated, where they take out Njoku in the University of Lagos and they take out Kenneth Dike in University of Ibadan, and alongside them, they take out a whole bunch of people. So that, and all that ends up coming out of it, at that point in time, you have to put things in context historically. All that ends up coming out of the level of discourse they have at that point in time, which is a fantastic person to talk with who was there then, is Wole Soyinka. What really ends up coming out of it is maybe a little bit of the legs of some Nigerian version of, Cold War, this thing of communism and some level of Marxism, which, it's not even an idea. It's just people rambling, and then eventually a coup takes place. And even before the coup took place, all that level of reckoning didn't really happen. So you don't have a country that has like a level of sitting down and, what is this? What is the space? We've never had that. We just have one thing after the other, and it's, you could pretty much see it as a Jagaban country. Might as well see it as that. But yeah, I don't know if you want to get to talking about the debacles with the sudden change of currency, which is part and parcel of all this. We
were thinking to speak about that development. The policy on setting limits on withdrawals from banks, and sort of the panic that all of that is creating within the system. And, so I'm looking at the so-called redesign of the Naira. And it's really, it's like you have an opportunity to redesign your currency, and there is really no serious change. It's like you just change the shading, the color shading of the currencies, and that's supposed to be the redesign. I think that is the sort of thing that is bound to create confusion, that a lot of people may not get the memo and may continue to accept the expired currency, and then basically be out of their money, because I'm sure that there are some poor traders in remote countries in Nigeria who will receive the old currency after the new one is in operation and not tell the difference, because they're basically the new currencies, the designs I've seen, so mimic closely the old ones that I don't think it's going to be clear to anybody at all that this is a new. This was an opportunity to do a serious redesign, and how much could it cost to redesign your currency really in a way that is significant if you were going to do it, right? But I think that the current leadership of the Central Bank of Nigeria has been perhaps the poorest central banker in Nigeria's recent history, from just printing money for the government to the the heavy-handed intervention in the parallel foreign exchange market, which, if there was enough supply of foreign exchange, then there will not be that discrepancy between the so-called black market and the official market, and so on. So it's like that under this current central bank governor, the Nigerian economy has undergone its most precipitous fall. And so I'm not sure that there is any particular organic thinking going on, that anybody is thinking seriously of how the change in policy and the redesign of the so-called redesign of the currency and the other fiscal policies are going to impact the Nigerian economy coming up to a year where we're going to see a transition from one government to another. Say nothing of employment or unemployment, right?
Yeah.
So basically, the Nigerian government is finding it extremely difficult to pay its workers. So the government at the federal level is not offering much of any employment. Ditto for the states. So the country is going to be a very bleak place where we're producing graduates all the time, graduates who have received very little education, who have definitely not received education that will make them creative, but they are being poured out. The economy is not creating jobs for them. They don't have the capacity much, a lot of them, to create jobs for themselves. So Nigeria, the forecast for Nigeria, I don't think is looking very good.
Yeah. I mean, the crazy and the fun part is all the people that have been hoarding money in different ways, septic tanks and all that, they're bringing it out and the money spoiled.
Yeah.
But yeah, generally, I mean, the term jackpot is now trending, and even foreign people that come to Nigeria, leaders have asked, like, what's jackpot? And they have to explain. Essentially, jackpot is people find a way of
leaving the country, running away.
You get a visiting visa, you run away, you don't come back. This week, the UK Home Secretary, I believe her name is Braverman, Suvella Braverman. She and the UK government have talked about, which is actually almost definitely going to happen. And justly so. My see me as being harsh, anybody that feels like, but justly so. Nigerian people on student visas are the ones that bring in 70% of the dependents of all. They get issued. The Nigerian student visa jumped up from less than 1,000 to like 7,000 plus, and then they bring in about 70. And they're about, I think, overall, I can't put the exact data. I think maybe 15-20% of the student visas were issued to Nigerians, less than 10%, somewhere around there. But the Nigerian people are the ones bringing in like about 75% of dependents. Some places people are bringing in even grandma to go study for a master's degree. I don't know how you do it, man. When you wake up and you're like, yeah, I'm going to study for a master's degree. So this is my my wife, my kids, and grandma. It's like, so that's pretty much what's happening worldwide. I don't know what America is or isn't doing about it, but people are trying to, people are leaving, and the best and the brightest, and I mean, the conversations there, man, when you talk with people there now, and it's insane. Hospitals, every doctor writes an exam to go anywhere, Saudi Arabia, you name it. So it's very complex. amongst other things, it's just the part of the Naira is just very telling, and the way they changed it within 3 months. They wanted 3 months. They gave 3 months grace period, and the mannerisms, the way the guy is so arrogant about it. And rightly, like you said, he chased, the way he has come down on the Forex thing, chased people that just had ordinary websites reporting information about what the current rates on the streets are. And it's done nothing useful. So it's I don't know. It's the perfect country for Tinubu to rule. Yeah, they should just give it to him. Why not?
Well,
let's see what happens.
I'll tell you something. I mean, in the end, Nigerians are going to decide who runs their country. If the elections are free and fair, and Nigerians see Tinubu and his frailties, see how feeble he is intellectually and physically, and they fantasize to hire him as their leader, and they carry out that fantasy, which is within their grip and right to do, then we're going to sit back and enjoy it, and enjoy the ride. We're going to sit back and see a reenactment of the argument when Tinubu spends months in London, and people will say, hey, the president of Nigeria can govern anywhere he is, sort of a variant of what James Ibori, former governor of Delta State, said on one occasion when he went, I think, to London as well, or to Paris, I forget, to do a party with Terry Wire, one of these
former Senate president in the Second Republic back in 70. That's Joseph Wires. Oh, sorry.
This is Terry Wire, was just a young man in those days who suddenly made some money under Abacha's government, made a lot of money. And so he celebrated his birthday when Ibori was governor, and a lot of governors went there. And, it's like one of those opulent events where, drinks and food, and it was catered event at one of these most opulently expensive places. And so people criticize. I think Obasanjo actually mounted a criticism of the governors who attended. And so Ibori famously said that he's the governor of Delta State, and wherever he is, even if he's in the toilet, that he's governing from the toilet. So in those days, I wrote a column called Ibori's Toilet Ethics, and so anyway, so we're going to have a situation if Tinubu wins, where if he's spending months and months abroad, seeing to his health rather than seeing to the ruin of Nigeria, some of his supporters will say, hey, even if he's in a hospital in London, he's governing. He's governing.
The country will go on in whatever way, shape, or form.
And the thing is, Nigeria has managed. Nigeria has managed. When Babangida was president, Babangida gave an interview to a magazine where he says that Nigeria baffled him, that he didn't know day to day how the country was able to keep surviving. Babangida could say that because as president, he knew everything he'd done to wreck the country. And somehow Nigeria continued. And Nigeria has survived. And I put it to the ingenuity of Nigerians, to their genius, to their talent, to their creativity and energy, So it is ordinary Nigerians who somehow hold the country together, sort of hold the fabric from just coming apart, totally. But
one day that reckoning
will
That
come.
reckoning is long due.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
some
yeah,
way,
yeah.
shape, or form, and it's going to be.
In fact, the reckoning, which is why I have said again and again that perhaps we should not have elections, that we don't have a country, that what we should do is to set foundations, use this opportunity, and in a sense, really, the only successful president we can have out of this miasma of of very unpleasant possibilities. The only successful president we can have out of this is one who says, if you elect me, I'm not going to govern as if I were president. I'm actually going to constitute an emergency rescue government. And I'm going to turn myself into a transitional president to convoke a conversation, select experts in different areas to come up with reports about how to fix the country and ultimately how to adopt a different and workable constitution for the country. Anyway, so I think we can, with good conscience, leave the conversation at this point and reconvene in another few days and continue to have this conversation about a country that has great prospects, but has been poorly served by its people, especially its leaders.
Maybe by then Tinubu will have a speech at Brookings Institute. Who knows? Who knows what is bound to next?
If it does come, then you go have dinner with him. Yeah.
I would, it would be interesting to not to have dinner with him, but just to sit down in a room where people are having, like, where after the Chatham House event, they went back and he was doing
Bulgaro.
And he's like, man, people don't like you, man. It's like people don't like you. I'm like, even it doesn't even seem like your wife likes you, man. I don't think anybody that likes you. Like, bro. I'm like, what? All the same, man. Why not go ahead, be president? All of them are probably there, dividing their cabinet positions. Festus Keyamo is going to be minister for one thing. Good luck to them, man.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll see. I think I keep thinking that for one reason, that somehow that Tinubu, some part of me sort of believes that Tinubu is going to recognize that this is he's running a fool's errand and just.
He is the front runner. I don't think he's sitting down to.
No. I have said if you consider that his party is the incumbent party, and with all the ways in which incumbent parties are able to manipulate elections in Nigeria, right?
Yeah.
Outright steal them if need be. If you consider that factor, if you consider the fact that he has a lot of money, if you consider the problems in Atiku's PDP with the insurgent governor still remaining unappeased, if you consider that for all the emotional appeal that Peter Obi has among the youth, that there are sectors in Nigeria where perhaps they haven't heard his name, right? Especially in the critical northern part of the northern half of the country, not every part of the north, but in some sectors. Tinubu has as good a chance as any, and I'm not denying it, but I'm saying to him, don't let the posterity, don't let history curse you for imposing your illness on a country that was more ill than you. So instead of letting somebody who can pay attention to a nation's problems, you just impose yourself to serve your ego, and you are not up to the task, and you can't even do a press conference, and you can't do a town hall apart from sending some of your campaign officials to attack Nduka Berbana, as if Nduka were, I mean, the passion that they brought to this war with Nduka Berbana, if they brought that passion, Tinubu would have been able to answer a few questions, Yeah, but anyway. So it's good to be back, and we thank you very much for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Have a brilliant rest of the week.
All right.
All right.